So today I want to talk about United Farm Workers marching for union rights. Farm workers feed us. They work to grow and harvest the crops that end up on our plates. And in that process, they're subject to pesticides and chemicals, intense temperatures, dangerous conditions, and so much more. So today, I'd like to take a moment to highlight a struggle that's going on where we can support farm workers in California as they're fighting to secure union rights. As of August 3rd, farm workers are marching from Delano to Sacramento, California, in order to secure the ability to organize without intimidation. So let's take a look at what's going on and learn how we can support these workers. We have here on August 3rd that the farm workers had launched a 24-day, 335-mile march for the governor's signature from the UFW's historic Delano, California 40 acres. The plan is that they will arrive in Sacramento on August 26th. Farm workers are marching to win the right to vote for a union free from intimidation and threats. This march is to convince Governor Gavin Newsom to sign AB 2183, the Agricultural Labor Relations Voting Choice Act. The bill would give more choices to farm workers so they can vote free from intimidation. Farm workers would be able to vote in secret whenever and wherever they feel safe. Community members and organizations in each town along the road, each town will be on a different day, will be the key support, a morning blessing when marchers depart, and organizing residents to participate and help by providing food, water, and more for the marchers. So they're going to be stopping in a different town every single day, and they've already got all of these community members and organizations in towns to provide them. This is a very well organized march that will hopefully be able to provide some sort of justification for the governor of California to sign this bill into law. Now, it's worth noting that the reason that they are arriving on August 26th is because the same governor has declared that the August 26th of every year shall be designated as California Farm Worker Day to highlight, remember, and appreciate the work that farm workers contribute daily in California. Now, the ironic part about this is that these workers are being prevented from unionizing because of the conditions that they're experiencing on farms, yet, we're going to celebrate them. And it brings up a lot of that same energy that a lot of people heard when we were talking about essential workers during the beginning parts of the pandemic, where everyone was so important and we need to celebrate workers, except not really, because you're not actually doing the things that are required to give workers access to the rights that they need and deserve. Now, I also want to point out that when we're looking at this really long march over the course of these 24 days, the march is going to be done through the extreme heat of this summer during August. These are really dangerous conditions to march approximately 15 miles a day. That said, these workers that are on this march already work day in and day out in these extreme and brutal temperatures, harvesting crops and making sure food gets harvested in order to get to our plates. Now, I'm thankful that the people who are marching on this journey will have the support of these communities and towns in order to secure water, food, and other provisions during these extreme temperatures. This trek speaks to the conviction of these workers and other supporters to help secure the rights of their fellow farm workers and make sure that they have a safe right to organize and choose to join a union to secure higher wages, better conditions, and hopefully bring agricultural workers' rights closer to other workers' rights. When we look more into what's going on here, a lot of the farm workers, because of the nature of their jobs, are often on grower properties for extended periods of time. And when the voting's been done, it's been done on grower property amidst cynical voter suppression through abuse and intimidation by foremen, supervisors, and labor contractors. None of this should come as a surprise. A lot of the people who are working on these large areas, these large farms, are in fact, isolated in a lot of ways. And so it's not difficult for a lot of the people in charge to come up and tell them, hey, if you do this, if you vote for the union, don't bother showing up back to work. And it becomes the workers' word versus the supervisor, foreman, or other labor contractors. Now, when we look at what AB 2183 is supposed to do to prevent this, the bill amends the Agricultural Labor Relations Act to facilitate the ability of farm workers to vote for or against unionization. The bill expands voting options for farm workers by allowing them to choose if they want to vote at a physical location or vote by mailing or dropping off a representation ballot card to the Agricultural Labor Relations Board office. Farm workers would be able to receive assistance in filling out and returning their representation ballot cards as long as the person assisting them co-signs it, and it's returned to the ALRB office in a sealed and signed envelope. The existing law as it stands says that the representation election is held via a secret ballot at a polling place designated by the ALRB, which is usually at the place of employment. Again, that makes it very easy for intimidation tactics to be employed. In a representation election, farm workers present their identification card or check stub, receive a ballot, and cast a confidential vote for or against unionization. If the eligibility of the voter is questioned, the ballot is placed in a sealed envelope and submitted for review. Now, again, part of the reason that this is so important and why it's a major solution, the solution here is to change this, is that the modernizing of the Agricultural Labor Relations Act to allow for ballot card election facilities, farm workers' ability to exercise their right to vote for or against union representation would increase because of the fact that they'd be able to do so outside of the area where they could be so easily coerced. So the ballot cards would allow them to essentially provide that information without being coerced by their employers. When we look more into what the Desert Sun, the newspaper here, had to say about it, the ability to vote by mail would help free workers of the fear that often comes with wanting to vote to unionize. I've been part of many unionizing efforts where workers want to vote, but they see their managers' faces and are discouraged from doing so. Workers are often told if you vote to unionize, you'll lose your job, Torres said. This is Hilario Torres, a farm worker for 33 years that currently works as an organizer for United Farm Workers. When the time to vote comes, he said, companies may frame benefits like wage increases, healthcare, and holiday time off as threats to farm workers' positions, saying they'll have to lay some people off to comply. Voting by mail would remove a lot of these obstacles that are based on intimidation, said Torres. Yeah, so what a lot of companies will do is they'll, come up to you in the meantime, like while you're at these positions where you're about to vote and say, by the way, you might be fine, you might get a wage increase, but some of your coworkers might have to go if we get this union. You don't want that to happen to your coworkers, right? And so people are coerced into not doing this. And this is a form of retaliation for unionizing. And it's something that needs to be addressed and changed. And to be perfectly honest, it's currently available through the National Labor Relations Act for federal employees of all kinds except farm workers and domestic workers. They already have alternative voting options during a union election. So this isn't even something radical or different. This is quite common, actually, across many different forms of employment. As usual, when it comes to the United States, agricultural workers are kind of left to the wayside and are pushed to the side when it comes to a lot of this, again, probably to keep prices and wages down. And it's purposefully designed by the state where a lot of protections are not provided. So with all of this, I wanted to take a moment to see the kind of disingenuous arguments that those who are opposed to this really, really positive labor movement here are doing. So we have here from some of the organizations that are against this. The Western Growers Association is strongly opposed to AB 2183. What a surprise that the employers are not in favor of people unionizing. This bill is not about mail-in voting. It is. it pretty much is exclusively about mail-in voting. Respectfully, it is the latest attempt to undermine the secret ballot election process as established by the Agricultural Labor Relations Act. The secret ballot serves as one of the core elements for the protection of farm workers' right to a free, uncoerced choice in deciding to vote either for or against union representation. What they mean here, and what they're trying to say here, is that this would even the odds. As we saw before, it would allow people to be able to vote without the coercion of their employer on the employer's property. So what they want to continue doing here is to have the ability to exploit and abuse their workers and to get away with it. And they're seeing the free choice of people as a threat to their position. You know, they claim that this is about protecting the free choice, but they're not even acknowledging the type of tactics that they know they used during all of this. AB 2183 eliminates a farm worker's right to a secret ballot election that's free from coercion from any party that has a financial interest in the outcome of the election. Because having it done on your property as a landowner or as, you know, the foreman of a certain plot of land doesn't in any way mean that there's somebody with financial interest influencing the outcome of the election. Not at all. The point is that this is another example of these companies being disingenuous, and this is the type of propaganda that they're putting out to make it seem like they're just concerned about a fair outcome, and that it's, you know, it's in everybody's best interest if we just keep things the way they are. We don't have to change anything. We do. And the worst part about this is that they actually cite UFW founder Cesar Chavez, basically saying that he insisted that the act ensure that secret ballot elections are to be the exclusive means for recognizing a union. This ensures that farm workers may express a true preference on union representation without coercion from either their employer or the union seeking to be their representative. So, the thing that is really disgusting about this is Cesar Chavez was the big, main person, one of the main people in United Farm Workers when it first was established. His goal was to get farm workers unionized across the western part of the United States especially, right? So to use his name as part of the justification for continuing your employment propaganda reeks of the kind of thing that we see when a lot of people, especially more right-wing people, misquote MLK and ignore all of his socialist leanings and ignore all the quotes that don't agree with their position. It's just a rewriting of history and a misrepresentation of someone who was a major union activist to support the position of employers and the employing class. This is really disgusting, to be honest. And so what we should really take away from all of this, and when we see this in other cases, where we have Fisher Phillips putting out a lot of information, is that they are disingenuously creating propaganda tools to make it seem like the unions are somehow making things less fair, when in fact things are already unfair in their favor and they want to maintain the ability to hurt and harm workers. You know, they're even making stuff up like a union may also be able to pre-fill a ballot card and present it to employees for signature without anything more. There's this also concern that unions are going to intimidate and threaten workers who do not sign off on ballot cards, or that pro-union employees use peer pressure to change a coworker's vote. We saw what was actually happening. It's not the concern that peer pressure is going to change people's votes. It's about power dynamics. And I think it should be apparent to anyone who's watching this that this is an abusive and coercive method of shifting the blame onto the people who are trying to create better conditions for themselves. These employers are the actual ones applying their power and pressure through their economic incentives and the position that they have through their class interest in order to make it so workers don't get the ability to unionize and group up. And that is the justification they're using in all of this. So when it comes to all of this, I hope you'll recognize with me that this struggle is something worthwhile, and that these farm workers who feed us and allow food to reach our plates deserve our support and our care. If you happen to be from California, consider joining the march or finding a way to help out. especially if the march is going through your town. And if you're able to sign a workers' petition that exists, asking California Governor Newsom to sign AB 2183 into law, I'm going to ask that you please do so. I'm going to post the link for that in the description down below, and you can take a look at that, and I hope that you will sign it. So let's try to do what we can, and even if you can't do that, try to spread the message so that these workers can organize without intimidation and have an easier time forming unions without the exploitation of their employers breathing down their neck and lying to employees in order to secure their abusive and coercive positions of authority over people who just want to band together to get better conditions. So with that said, if you've enjoyed what you've watched here, consider liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment, as well as joining my Discord, where we have conversations on topics like these. If you are in a financial place to do so, and only if you're in a financial place to do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, especially as political content like this can often be demonetized on YouTube. The links for everything that I mentioned are in the description down below. I also highly encourage you to check out that petition that I posted down there. With that said, my name is Anarchist Tara. Thank you so much for watching.